Okay, I am Mateo Rader. I've been dedicated to lion's mane mushrooms for about 12 years. And what we have here is the Wild West Showdown via lion's manes. A lot of this information will be pertinent to mushroom supplements in general because it's kind of the same industry, but my main focus is lion's manes due to its cognitive enhancing effects. Lion's mane mushroom is one of the only mushrooms, one of the only foods that helps your brain and nervous system repair and grow by a variety of mechanisms. It's pretty outstanding how involved it is in neuronal and bacteriological health. I guess we could call that the gut microbiome. I learned a lot putting together this presentation, and one of my biggest new interests now is the gut microbiome. Possibly you've heard about it, possibly not. I'm sure you have heard that we are more bacterial cells than we are human cells, and that is true. Our gut is the access point for our nutrition, and taking these mushroom supplements, not only lion's mane, shiitake, maitake, appear to be among the highest performers of microbiota enhancement, but they lay down, I'd say, a surface area where your healthy microbes can link onto and anchor and run their operations from a comfortable space where they're supposed to be in appropriate concentrations, ideally, in your body. This guy decided to quit.
Okay, well, shouldn't have to click. I guess so. There you go.
What'd you click on? How'd you do that?
Okay, it's working again.
That's working again. Okay.
I don't know.
You have the touch.
It's technology.
Yep. I have a weird magnetism, apparently. It works on some people, doesn't work on devices all the time. All right, goals and objectives of this talk and my particular research putting together this presentation. To understand the intricacies of biological functions in order to assist the body's natural balance, that's the microbiota, to define methods for getting out of the way of our own self-repair and limit the degradation of what has painstakingly been bioassembled. Our bodies are factories of amino acids, esters, all kinds of super complex pieces and protein snippets. And if we can get out of the way of the genius of our body, health and homeostasis are essentially guaranteed through diet and lack of exercise and a couple of other things we will get into. We stress our balance and precipitate diseases and imbalance of all types. We're also establishing the efficacy of functional mushrooms and their unique brand of regenerating homeostasis, and to communicate findings and suggest tactics to enhance the biome of the self. Because we are not just ourselves, we are an entire ecosystem. So the Showdown series, we're going to cover, some of the most controversial topics in mycology, whether mycelium or fruit body is best for medicine making, alcohol and water as extractive solvents, powders versus liquids, if there's a magic bullet, and then we'll get into why. I am 42 years old, I'm a Libra, single, 28 years working on mushrooms, 14 years farming, 12 years cultivating, 5 years extracts, and really all I've ever made is extract because the powder stuff is way trickier, turns out. Lion's mane, Hericium erinaceus, 34 different species whose compound profile is greatly determined by strain, supplementation, and environment. There's over 240 primary and secondary metabolites that are working in the body to do all kinds of bodily functions. Oxidases, precursors, inhibitory enzymes, biocatalytic compounds, everything working together to balance and neutralize oxidation. All compounds identified have a supportive or antioxidative activity in mammals. Not only in mammals and fish and insects. There's mushroom extracts being fed to beehives to kind of as a vaccine against varroa mites. Beta-glucans are kind of the hot topic with mushrooms. This is what this is what all manufacturers are referencing these days, is how much beta-glucan is in their product. Turns out a lot of beta-glucans come from the starch that the mushroom mycelium was grown on, so perhaps that powdered coffee mushroom supplement is not as potent as you would like for it to be. Definitely better than taking nothing, but we'll get into why certain methods are more potent than others. These beta-glucans inhibit immunomodulatory effect, promote nerve growth synthesis, they're heat tolerant, which is good for production. They're complex and large, meaning they can break down into so many different functional pieces and parts to help with those different essences of the body that require so much chemistry. They're found in mycelium and fruit. They reduce the pH of the gut, which helps proliferate beneficial bacteria, and they are free radical scavenging, meaning they complete ions that are floating around incomplete throughout the body, and if they land in the wrong place, they can certainly cause damage. These polysaccharides are also found in algae, aloe vera, rice bran, lotus root, barley. Those are all good, including the Saccharomyces, that's the beer yeast, has super high in beneficial polysaccharides. The maltodextrin is a super common product in foods as kind of a flow agent slash holding on of seasoning onto your Doritos. They're in a lot of foods, and a lot of companies are including that number in their overall polysaccharide or beta-glucan count. Something you can't really identify without having advanced lab testing. So our first showdown here is fruit versus mycelium. The fruit bodies are able to produce more biomass and therefore produce more volume of extractable chemistry. They seem to have more neuroprotective compounds. So there's been a long-standing argument. Everybody's basically screaming the loudest about mushroom fruit bodies being the more beneficial compounds because that's what traditional Chinese medicine has been focused on for this whole long. But traditional medicine has not had the ability to produce mycelium in laboratory amounts, and with that sterility that is afforded by laboratory style. So the conversation has become moot, and really it comes down to what you're trying to treat. Mycelium has many compounds found that are not found in the fruiting body, various polyphenols, esters, lipids, flavonoids, which are all biocatalysts to myelin growth. The myelin sheath on your axons in your brain and nervous system are a lot like the copper wires in your electrical system in your house. There's the hard wire in the middle, and then there's the sheath. So diets and habits and life choices allow that myelin sheath to degrade, leaving your hard wires exposed and susceptible to oxidation and damaging chemicals like glyphosate and who knows what else might be in the water and or food. So the fruit seems to have more neuroprotective compounds that neutralize these pesticides and chemicals from the degradation, but they don't so much support growth. Whereas the mycelium seems to have more of a neurogenerative profile of compounds where they do help grow the nerve tissue more on a more permanent, established basis. Oh, alcohol versus water. Many people, so I make lion's mane extract, a liquid liquid tincture. That is the easiest way for me to make it as potent as possible and not get super fancy with the spray drying and extraction methods, or I should say the finishing methods of the product to make a nice powder that flows into capsules. There's lots of oils in lion's mane mushrooms, so if I were to dry it without all the fancy equipment, it would just become kind of a sludge that would then oxidize and lose a lot of its diversity. Alcohol then pulls many compounds that are not soluble in water, and then it's doubling as a preservative in the tincture bottle and not allowing the oxidation of these, I don't want to say minute, but they are really small and in varying potencies, or I should say concentrations, in the final product. Then water also pulls out the beta-glucans and things that don't come out in the water. So that's why you have both in a liquid tincture. Powder versus liquid. This has been on my mind for a while, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to put this slide presentation together and clarify things for myself at least. Like I said, alcohol preserves the volatile constituents, many of which are aromatic compounds, meaning if you can smell them, they're leaving the extract. They're no longer in stasis in the fluid. They're literally floating around in space and just going away. So the alcohol helps kind of hold those in and preserve them from being oxidized from the oxygen in the water, oddly enough. Tinctures also, well, we just got that. Let's see, fast acting. A lot of these compounds are super, super small, so they easily are absorbed through the mucosa in the mouth and throat. And the alcohol, believe it or not, helps with that transition through your mucosa because we are so good at absorbing alcohol. Many companies use flow agents or anti-caking compounds to contribute to the overall beta-glucan count. Maybe half the powder is rice, maybe half the powder is oats. How can you know? Again, you can't know without advanced testing that no one is going to afford on their products. So what it comes down to is ideally knowing who's producing your products. Maybe you can shoot them an email and ask for a certificate of analysis. If they won't provide a certificate of analysis, then you're dealing with somebody who's hiding behind a bunch of marketing. They're not to say their product is garbage, but there's an ocean of mycelium and mushroom fruit body products out there, so might as well find somebody who's willing to communicate and stand behind their statements. Is there a magic bullet? There is no magic bullet. Our choices, our habits, our ingredients that we put into our body are basically what we are made out of. No one mushroom is going to heal you. No one therapy, no one habit is going to make those myelin sheaths grow back. It's all a matter of your decisions through life and what you're allowing to be exposed to your sensitive chemistry. Over 20,000 proteins are involved in our body's functions. Over 20 different amino acids produce those proteins. Multiple sequences of action to complete the physical machine. Insanely intricate situation we have in these biomachines we call human bodies. Complexity is staggering. And if we're not absorbing our minerals and micronutrients, then we're have an incomplete scaffolding, and these proteins and amino acids can't form their full form. So that's where we get disease that historically have not really been an issue. But our soil is so depleted from micronutrients and metals, believe it or not, we need in our body, not necessarily an overabundance of heavy metals, but we need a variety of metals and minerals. So it really comes down to our gut microbiome as our first line of defense against pathogenic intrusion and nutrient onboarding. If we don't have enough surface area in our guts, we don't have enough cell signaling to absorb and access the nutrition that we're putting into our bodies. And this is where my research led. A week ago, I wasn't this big into microbiome and the importance of prebiotics. But now, after studying and putting this together, it is absolutely imperative to address your gut health and therefore your brain and nervous system and lymph health. So prebiotics, the mushroom polysaccharides are molecular keys that enhance communication signals between beneficial gut biota to maintain homeostasis. These prebiotics break down into fractions that assist a cascade of cellular function. In turn, the native bacteria and beneficial microbes exhibit enhanced functioning from the metabolites of the polysaccharides. Those bacteria structurally complete the intestinal habitat, including the lining, which is absolutely imperative to have full and healthy, to have more surface area and resistance. And then from those guys doing their thing, we get secondary metabolites, or short-chain fatty acids, which find more niches through the blood flow, the lymph, and nervous system. They go through the entire body, but only if they've been broken down and reassembled and accessed where they need to via our gut microbiome. Our mood, pathogen resistance, cognitive presence, and self-image largely rely on the health of our microbiome. So if we're depressed from lack of a complete scaffolding, then we're more likely to eat and drink and expose ourselves to toxins. So some solutions, most of which are free. Laughter precipitates release of endorphins, enhancing mood and general health. Novelty, turns out, activates the hippocampus and amygdala, therefore stimulating neuroplasticity and learning. So just visiting a new place and enjoying new scenery gives you apparently a 30-minute window of enhanced neuroplasticity where it's easier to learn things. And then we're relating those new things with the place, and anytime we think about it, we get dopamine. But it's endogenous dopamine, so we're not compromising our sensitivity to experiences like we would be with substances, for example. Exercise is crucial. Stimulates lymph movement, promotes oxygenation of the circulatory system, promotes better sleep for enhanced healing. While we're asleep, our bodies are healing themselves. Our nervous system in particular is flushing out any unused proteins or amino acids or enzymes that were not used. Also, bits and pieces that are metabolites of other systems in the body. If we're having poor sleep, we are not able to clear out our brains, and then there are all these little ionic components that can create havoc and oxidation where they shouldn't be. Sleep is crucial. Diet supplies the base chemistry for over 20,000 biochemical processes, largely dependent on the gut microbiota. So supplement wisely. Take a blood test. Take a poo test, find out what the state of the union is, and that will heavily influence your direction for what supplements you should take. And of course, sleep. Brain and gut receptor sites, everything's repairing as long as it's communicating and able to out with the old, in with the new. Throughout one day, the average person, 35,000 decisions. So, if we are wise in our decision making and present with our decision making, we will hopefully and ideally limit the amount of contamination that's in our diet, choosing what we eat, when we eat it. I didn't make a slide for it, but intermittent fasting, that is not eating for a 12-hour window, and that can include while you sleep. So 8 hours of that sleep, or 8 hours of that not eating is while you're asleep, so it's not a big deal. It's just early dinner, late breakfast, gets you to 12 plus hours of not eating. That gives your body time to out with the old, in with the new, and your systems can regulate. Old cells get to be digested and reabsorbed. Those amino acids get to be reused in various parts of the body, and they're not taking up space and gumming up the works. You are your own best friend or your own worst enemy, depending on the decisions we make. Let's see. We exist in a continuum made up of the consequences of our choices. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Any questions? No questions. Everybody knows all this stuff. Yes, sir. Yes, my extractions are with ethanol and distilled water. I have a booth out here. I'll be selling these tinctures from mushrooms that I cultivate. So, entire chain of command or chain of custody is in my hands, and it works. I have not. I am curious about getting into sonication. Seems to be a good direction to go. Yes, ma'am. So the question is, okay, should you boil your extraction? I wouldn't recommend boiling at all. If you boil lion's mane in particular, you're going to lose a lot of the flavonoids and just kind of these aromatic compounds I was discussing that can just evaporate. So, well, maybe just keep it under 145 degrees. That's what I've been doing. It seems to be working. Fahrenheit, yep. Yeah, the polysaccharides will survive boiling. In a lot of these studies, they were boiling for 4 to 8 hours, but they're only focused on the polysaccharides. So if you want the 70 plus other things, you got to keep the temps low. Yes, yes, ma'am. Substrate ratio is the master's mix, 50% hardwood fuel pellets and 50% organic soybean hulls. For hardwood in general. I live in Colorado, so we don't have a lot of diversity in hardwood trees. So I'm actually ordering bags from Michigan. It's the only place that had the organic soybean hulls. So lion's mane's pretty easy. They'll grow on just about anything, including pine, from what I've been reading. Gonna have to experiment with that some more. So it really comes down to supplementation, your nitrogen carbon ratio, and they'll just do their thing given the right environment. You're welcome. Yes, sir. Oh, they're relatively easy. I hesitate because there's a lot of steps. There's the lab petri dish side, and then there's the substrate side. So substrate to fruit is about 2 months. But there's a lot of good literature on that already. I could definitely recommend Trad Cotter's book, the Paul Stamets books. Oh, okay. Oh, you got the book on the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get a lot of reference books over there.
Okay.
We're a club, so we're not selling them.
Oh, okay. Got some books for reference. The Trad Cotter book is top notch. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it earlier or maybe you might have missed it. What percentage proof of alcohol are you using and what's your preferred alcohol brand?
Okay. Let's see. For the tinctures, what is the best alcohol percentage? I'm reducing it down to about 30% because I don't filter my tincture, so I'm trying to leave as much of the good stuff in there. A lot of the industry standards is to filter out all the precipitate in order to enhance shelf life. But they're also filtering out tons of good stuff that's just settling in the bottom. So I'm going for a little bit higher percentage of the alcohol to preserve it. But I also read that 80% ethanol was the best ratio for extraction, but that may have been like for a particular subset of compounds, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people doing 70%, but 7% is also pricier.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess to answer your other question, I'm using 95% ethanol. I would use 100% if I could get it, because the water that's in the alcohol frac portion is going to react and kind of complicate the alcohol extraction, because you're kind of sending conflicting messages, trying to pull two different types of compounds out at the same time. So it would be ideal to go 100% alcohol and then just water and then mix those two. Yes, sir. Not recommended to eat it raw. You probably could until you can't. Your body might develop a sensitivity to it. There's chitin is basically the building structure of mushrooms, which is the same material as like a crab shell or an insect exoskeleton. So very hard substance. So cooking it breaks down that chitin layer and allows absorbability or access to those compounds. You probably will lose some of the flavonoids and phenolic compounds that would just evaporate, but you're getting all the polysaccharides and enough of the good juju to help your brain and nervous system. Here's a quick cooking tip. This is good for all mushrooms. You want to start with a dry saute, no oil in the pan, chipped up or sliced mushrooms, salted with the lid on. Now you're going to steam the mushrooms, and you want to cook them in their own moisture for as long as possible. They'll try to stick to the pan, but you can just keep turning them with the lid on, and then when they really start trying to stick to the pan, then you hit them with the oil and get them to saute to. I'd take them like half an hour to golden brown. Flavor-wise, I think that's the best. And it doesn't seem like you're going to lose too much. A lot of these compounds are very sturdy. All right. Oh, yes. Well, yeah, go ahead. Yield-wise, I mean, probably the bags, but it really comes down to your business model and what you have access to. For my own self, bags for sure, because I don't have much hardwood to work with. And then the logs you have to harvest while the trees are dormant, so it's a seasonal thing, having logs that are appropriate for cultivation. Yes, sir? I have not, but that is certainly a thing. I read a variety of recipes that have different ingredients for targeting specific compounds in that mycelium for the study. So I'm super interested in that. I'm thinking about taking part of my time into exploring that, which will require testing, because otherwise you're just shooting into the dark and hoping for the best, which probably works, but it would be nice to know what and why and how? Good question. All right. Thanks a lot.